She was trying to survive the most boring date of her life when the most dangerous man in Chicago pulled up a chair and said, "Get out, she's mine." But this is not just a story about a mafia boss claiming a woman in a crowded restaurant. It is about the kind of love that arrives too late, the kind of silence that breaks a heart, and the kind of man who only realizes what he lost when another man reaches for it. Ava Monroe sat beneath golden restaurant lights smiling politely, while her heart was somewhere else, somewhere darker, older and harder to forget. Then Roman Callahan walked in, and every lie she had told herself began to fall apart. Watch until the end because this story is about being chosen, not owned. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. Before Roman Callahan ever pulled that chair beside Ava Monroe, before his voice cut through a crowded Chicago restaurant and made every stranger hold their breath, Ava had already survived him once. Not in the way people survived men like Roman, not with blood on her hands or a bullet hole in a wall. She had survived him quietly. She had done it with a packed bag, a folded resignation letter, and the kind of broken heart no one could see unless they knew where to look. 3 months before that night, the Callahan estate stood at the edge of Lake Forest like something built to keep the world out. Tall iron gates guarded the long driveway. Bare trees leaned over the road like silent witnesses. Security cameras watched from the corners of stone walls. Black cars came and went without headlights, sometimes moving through the property like shadows trained to obey. The house itself was beautiful in a cold, expensive way. White stone, dark windows, wide steps, polished brass handles that never showed fingerprints for longer than a minute. Inside, everything had a place. Every rug, every glass, every arrangement of flowers, every folder in Roman Callahan's office. Ava Monroe knew all of it. She knew which hallway carried sound and which one swallowed it. She knew which door stuck when it rained. She knew the second step on the east staircase creaked unless you put your weight near the wall. She knew the staff entrance needed a harder pull in winter. She knew the upstairs library stayed warmer than the rest of the house because Roman liked to read there after ugly meetings. She knew his house because she had been the one keeping it alive. At 5:30 in the morning, while most of Chicago still slept behind fogged apartment windows and quiet suburban blinds, Ava moved through the Callahan kitchen in soft flats and a gray sweater, her hair pinned loosely at the back of her neck. The kitchen lights glowed low over marble counters. A pot of coffee breathed steam into the air. Outside the windows, the sky was still blue-black. 2 guards passed by the side entrance speaking low. One of them laughed once. The other told him to shut up. Ava did not look up. She measured coffee with the same careful hand she used for everything in Roman's house. Strong, black, no sugar, no cream. Poured into the chipped ceramic mug he never let anyone throw away. The mug was ugly. Dark blue with a small crack near the handle. It belonged nowhere in a house filled with crystal silver and custom everything. But Roman used it every morning. Ava had once heard one of the older housekeepers say his sister gave it to him when she was 12. That was the kind of detail Ava remembered. She remembered too much. She set the mug on a small tray beside a folded newspaper he rarely read and a file Mrs. Bell had left for his signature. Then she waited exactly 40 seconds before picking it up. Roman hated coffee that burned his tongue. He had never told her that. She had simply noticed. That was the trouble with loving a man who never asked to be loved. You learned him in pieces. You gathered small truths and carried them like treasures even when they cut your palms. Ava crossed the long hallway toward Roman's office. The house was beginning to wake around her. A door opened upstairs. A phone rang once and stopped. Somewhere near the back of the property, an engine turned over. Roman's office door was open a few inches. A line of amber light fell across the floor. His voice came from inside low and even. "No, you do not move anything through Cicero without my approval." Ava stopped outside the door. She lowered her eyes, not because she was afraid of hearing too much, but because the rules of the house were older than her employment contract. You did not enter Roman Callahan's office until invited. You did not react to names. You did not repeat what you heard. You did not ask why men left meetings pale and silent. A pause followed. Then Roman spoke again. Tell Moretti he can ask me himself if he has suddenly grown that brave. Ava's fingers tightened around the tray. Vincent Moretti. She knew the name the way everyone in the house knew certain names. Not from conversation. From silence. Some names made guards stand straighter. Some names made Mrs. Bell press her lips together. Some names made Roman's face go still in a way that meant a storm had moved behind his eyes. Roman ended the call. Ava waited one breath. Then she knocked softly. Come in. She pushed the door open. Roman Callahan stood behind his desk with his sleeves rolled to his forearms, dark hair still damp from a shower, his shirt open at the throat. He looked like a man already halfway through a war before breakfast. Not tired, never tired. Roman did not allow himself to look tired. But Ava knew. She knew the faint shadow beneath his eyes. She knew the slight tightness at his jaw. She knew he had slept badly because the office lamp had been left on all night, and Roman only forgot lights when his mind refused to stop moving. Good morning, she said. His eyes lifted to her. For half a second, the room seemed to narrow. Then it was gone. Morning Ava. Her name and his voice always did something foolish to her heart. It made the quiet parts of her sit up and listen. She crossed to his desk and placed the tray down. Your coffee. Thank you. He picked up the mug. His fingers brushed the handle exactly where hers had been. Ava turned toward the windows, pretending to check the curtains. They were already perfect. She smoothed them anyway. Roman took a sip. She heard the soft sound of approval before he spoke. Perfect. One word. That was all. And still it settled in her chest like warmth. Ava hated herself a little for that. She had worked in expensive homes before. She had served demanding families, rich widows, retired judges, men who thought kindness was something staff should be grateful for. She had learned early how to keep her face still, her voice calm, her feelings folded where no one could reach them. But Roman had undone her without trying. He was not cruel to her. That would have been easier. He was respectful, controlled, never wasteful with words. He remembered her name. He noticed when she moved a painting because the morning light hit it wrong. He thanked her when she stayed late. He never raised his voice at the staff, and because Ava was lonely in ways she did not admit, she had mistaken those scraps of decency for something personal. Roman moved around his desk, still reading the file beside his coffee. You changed the flowers in the east room. Ava glanced over. Yes. I thought I asked for white roses. You did. His brow lifted. Ava kept her voice steady. They looked like a funeral arrangement in that room. I used cream gardenias instead. Softer light. Better against the green walls. Roman stared at her. Most people shrank when Roman Callahan stared. Ava did not. Not anymore. Finally, his mouth curved a fraction. You ignored my instruction. I improved it. The curve deepened by a breath. Did you? Yes. He looked towards the hallway as if considering whether the world had shifted. Then he looked back at her. I'll see it later. That was as close to praise as Roman often came. Ava nodded. I have the luncheon delivery confirmed for 1. The south dining room is ready. Mrs. Bell asked if you wanted the private cellar opened for tonight. Roman's gaze dropped back to the file. Yes. Ava felt the smallest pressure in her chest. Tonight. There was always a tonight. Large party, she asked before she could stop herself. Roman did not look up. Not large. That was not an answer. Ava understood anyway. She swallowed. I'll make sure everything is prepared. His phone buzzed. The moment closed. That'll be all. Ava took the empty tray and turned away. At the door, Roman said her name. Ava. She stopped too quickly. Yes. He studied her again, and for one dangerous second she thought he might ask what was wrong. She thought he might see the thing she had been hiding for months in plain sight. But his phone buzzed again. His eyes dropped. Nothing, thank you. Ava smiled because that was what she did. Of course. She stepped into the hallway before her face betrayed her. By noon, the house had changed its skin. Morning silence gave way to preparation. Staff moved through rooms with silver trays and pressed linens. A florist arrived with arrangements Ava quietly corrected before anyone else saw them. Security checked the gate twice. Mrs. Bell stood in the kitchen with a clipboard and the expression of a woman who had once made grown men cry over table settings. Ava moved from room to room, making sure every detail looked effortless. That was the lie of houses like Roman's. Everything seemed natural because people like Ava made sure no one saw the work. She adjusted candles in the south dining room. She replaced a cracked water glass before it reached the table. She took a call from a caterer who insisted the delivery driver was lost, then guided him through the private entrance without raising her voice. At 1:30, Roman walked through the dining room with two men beside him. Both were older. Both wore suits too heavy for the season. One of them looked at Ava as though she were furniture with a pulse. Roman noticed. He did not stop walking, but his eyes shifted once toward the man. The man looked away. Ava's foolish heart noticed that too. She hated how little it took. By evening, the house filled with people who laughed as if they did not know men with guns stood behind the doors. Women arrived in silk and perfume. Men arrived in tailored coats and quiet arrogance. Champagne opened in the west room. Music drifted from hidden speakers. A fire burned in the marble fireplace, making every face look warmer than it was. Ava stayed near the edges. She collected glasses before lipstick stained too deeply. She guided servers through the back hallway. She replaced napkins. She caught a falling champagne flute before it shattered on the floor, earning a surprised laugh from a woman who had not expected staff to have reflexes. The woman touched Ava's arm. "You're quick." Ava smiled. "You learn." The woman looked around the room, then leaned closer. "Does he always watch everything like that?" Ava followed her gaze. Roman stood near the windows with a drink in one hand and no visible interest in drinking it. A woman in a red dress stood beside him. She was beautiful in a way that seemed expensive. Dark hair, red mouth, confidence polished sharp enough to draw blood. Her hand rested lightly on Roman's arm. Roman did not remove it. Ava looked away. "Yes," she said, "he does." The woman laughed and drifted back toward the party. Ava carried a tray into the kitchen. The moment the swinging door closed behind her, she set it down harder than she meant to. Mrs. Bell looked up. Ava lowered her eyes. "Sorry." Mrs. Bell said nothing for a moment. Then she turned back to the counter. "Crystal can be replaced." Ava stilled. Mrs. Bell's voice softened, but only enough for Ava to hear. "People are harder." Ava's throat tightened. "I'm fine." Mrs. Bell did not argue. Women like Mrs. Bell knew that sentence was often a locked door. Ava returned to the party. The red dress woman was closer to Roman now. Too close. Roman said something Ava could not hear. The woman laughed, head tipping back, fingers sliding down Roman's sleeve. Ava stopped in the hallway. The scene framed itself like a painting. Roman in black. The woman in red. Firelight behind them. His face turned slightly toward hers. His expression calm, unreadable, but not dismissive. Not enough. That was the cruel part. Ava could have survived if he seemed bored, if he seemed annoyed, if he stepped away. But he did not. He allowed it. Maybe that was all it was. Permission. Ava pressed one hand against the wall. Her palm found cool plaster. In her chest, something thin and tired finally gave way. She had been waiting for a sign. Not a grand one. Not a confession beneath rain. Not a hand reaching across a table. Just something small enough to hold. A look that lingered too long. A question asked when no one else was listening. An interruption that meant he had noticed her leave the room. But Roman Callahan did not choose. Not women, not tenderness, not anything that asked to be protected in his own heart. He kept people near enough to serve a purpose, and far enough not to matter. Ava had spent months telling herself she was different because she knew the chipped mug, the gardenias, the coffee, the shadows under his eyes. Standing in that hallway watching another woman touch his arm, she understood at last. Knowing a man was not the same as being known by him. A young server came around the corner and nearly bumped into her. Miss Monroe. Ava straightened. Yes. Mrs. Bell needs you in the kitchen. Of course. Her voice sounded normal. That almost made it worse. The party stretched late. Ava worked until the guests blurred into colors and voices. Black coats, gold earrings, red lipstick, smoke from the patio, laughter from the library. Roman's voice drifting sometimes through the rooms low and controlled, never calling for her. Near midnight, the red dress woman left with 2 others. She did not leave with Roman. Ava saw that. The knowledge did not comfort her. It only made her feel more foolish. The details did not matter. Roman did not have to take someone upstairs to break her heart. He had broken it by never noticing he held it. By 1 in the morning, the house finally emptied. Car doors closed outside. Engines faded down the long drive. The fire burned low. The music stopped. The staff cleaned quietly. Roman had disappeared into his office. Ava did not ask where. She entered the west room alone after everyone else moved to the kitchen. The room looked tired. Cushions shifted out of place. Cocktail napkins abandoned on tables. A glass near the windows with a dark red stain on the rim. Ava picked it up. The lipstick mark curved against the crystal like a signature. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. Pale face, tired eyes, hair coming loose. A woman who had given too much meaning to things that meant nothing. For months, she had cleaned away the evidence of Roman's life after everyone else left. She had restored order to rooms where she did not belong. She had folded blankets, washed glasses, changed sheets, replaced flowers, prepared coffee, and told herself love could be proven by care. But care without being chosen was just another kind of service. She set the glass down. The mark stayed where it was. For once, Ava did not wipe it away. She walked through the hall toward Roman's office. The house felt different at night. Larger, colder. Every step sounded too loud. His office door was closed, no light beneath it. Ava stood there for a long moment, one hand raised. She could knock. She could say his name. She could tell him everything. That she loved him. That seeing him with other women had carved her hollow. That every thank you from his mouth had fed a hope she should have killed months ago. She imagined him opening the door. She imagined his face. Not cruel. Worse. Kind. Confused. Regretful without wanting her. The thought steadied her. Ava lowered her hand. She went to the small writing desk in the staff office instead. The desk lamp flickered once before settling into warm light. Ava pulled a sheet of cream paper from the drawer. Her hand hovered over it. There were so many things she could have written. You made me feel invisible. I loved you and it humiliated me. I waited for you to see me until I forgot how to see myself. Instead, she wrote with clean, careful strokes. Mr. Callahan, thank you for the opportunity. I am resigning from my position effective immediately. I wish you well. She stared at the words. They looked professional. They looked calm. They looked like a lie wearing good shoes. Ava folded the paper once, then again. She carried it to Roman's office. The door was unlocked. She stepped inside. The room smelled like leather cedar and the faint smoke of his cologne. His desk was neat except for one open file and the chipped blue mug empty now sitting near the lamp. Ava placed the letter in the center of the desk. For a moment, her fingertips rested on the paper. Then she looked around the room she knew too well. The west window. The dark wood shelves. The chair where Roman sat when he was thinking. The drawer where he kept peppermint candies he pretended were for guests. The hidden sadness in a room built to look powerful. Ava whispered goodbye. The word vanished into the walls. In her small room at the back of the estate, she packed quickly. She did not own much. Clothes, a framed photo of her mother, 2 books, a pair of earrings Mia had given her for her birthday, a notebook filled with design sketches no one at the estate had ever seen. She changed out of her work clothes and into jeans boots and a navy coat. Before leaving, she stood in the doorway of the room. It had never been home, but it had held the version of her who still believed waiting was romantic. Ava turned off the light. The hallway was empty. At the staff entrance, her hand closed around the knob. She paused. The urge to look back hit her so hard she almost laughed. As if the house might call her name. As if Roman might step from the shadows and ask where she was going. As if life had ever been that merciful. No sound came. Ava opened the door. Cold night air rushed over her face. She walked down the side path with her bag over one shoulder, past the sleeping garden, past the black cars, past the gatehouse where a guard looked up in surprise. Miss Monroe. She kept walking. I'm leaving. Do you need a car? No. The guard hesitated, then nodded, because people in Roman's world knew better than to ask twice. Ava walked through the gate and into the dark road beyond. Only when the estate disappeared behind the trees did she let herself cry. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just silent tears that cooled on her cheeks before she wiped them away. By morning, Ava was in Chicago. Her new apartment in Wicker Park was on the 3rd floor of a brick building above a closed flower shop and beside a coffee place that opened too early. The stairwell smelled like dust-old paint and someone's dinner. The radiator knocked like it had a temper. The kitchen cabinet under the sink did not close properly. Ava loved it immediately. It was small. It was imperfect. It was hers. No one held meetings in the next room. No guards stood outside. No women left perfume in halls Ava had to clean. No one expected her to know what they needed before they asked. She bought cheap curtains, a used couch, a round kitchen table with scratches on the surface. She placed fresh basil on the windowsill and painted one wall warm green because Roman had once said green made rooms feel restless, and Ava discovered she liked it. The first week was hard, not because she regretted leaving, because love did not leave when she did. It followed her into the grocery store. It sat beside her on the train. It appeared in the silence after work when she reached for her phone and remembered there would be no message from him. Roman did not call. That hurt, even though she had asked for nothing. No, she had not even asked. That was the problem. Ava found work at a boutique interior design firm run by a woman named Helena Price, who wore red glasses and had the terrifying ability to look at a room for 5 seconds and know exactly what was wrong with it. During Ava's interview, Helena flipped through her portfolio. You worked private estates. Yes. Rich people with bad taste. Ava almost smiled. Some had excellent taste. That means the worst ones paid better. Ava did smile then. Helena looked at her over the glasses. You're quiet. I listen. That's useful. Can you tell a client their $20,000 chandelier looks like a haunted jellyfish? Ava blinked. Helena waited. Ava said I can say it needs a room with more architectural humor. Helena smiled. You start Monday. Work helped. Fabric samples, floor plans. Client calls. Measuring windows. Choosing paint. Arguing gently with men who thought beige was a personality. Ava learned to speak her own opinions without asking permission first. Helena pushed her into meetings. Mia cheered every small victory as if Ava had personally rebuilt the skyline. Mia Alvarez had known Ava since community college back when both of them were broke tired and convinced adulthood would become easier if they bought better planners. Mia arrived at Ava's apartment every Friday with takeout and no patience for lies. On the 3rd Friday after Ava left Roman's estate, Mia sat cross-legged on the couch eating noodles straight from the container. You look better. Ava poured wine into 2 mismatched glasses. I do. You look like you sleep. I don't. Okay, but you look like you might someday. Ava handed her a glass. Mia studied her. Has he called? Ava looked toward the window. Number. Mia cursed under her breath. Ava shook her head. I didn't ask him to. You shouldn't have to ask someone to care that you vanished from his life. Ava flinched. Mia softened at once. I'm sorry. No, Ava said. You're right. The radiator knocked loudly. Both women looked at it. Mia raised her glass. To terrible apartments. Ava clinked her glass against Mia's. To mine. Mia smiled. That's my girl. For a while they talked about work, about Helena, about Mia's cousin's terrible wedding plans, about whether Ava should buy a real bed frame or continue pretending the mattress on the floor was a design choice. Then Mia grew quiet. You know, you don't have to date, right? Ava leaned back. I know. Then why did you agree to dinner with that Grant guy? Ava looked at the wine in her glass. Grant Whitaker had appeared through a client event 2 nights earlier. Polished suit. Nice smile. Finance job. The kind of man who knew how to say all the right, harmless things. He had asked about her work, complimented her design eye, and laughed when she made a dry comment about men who wanted black leather couches because they thought it made them mysterious. He was normal. That had been the appeal. I need to prove something, Ava said. Mia's expression tightened. To him. No, to me. What? Ava traced a finger along the rim of her glass. That I can sit across from a man and not look for Roman in the way he holds a drink. Mia said nothing. Ava laughed, softly embarrassed by her own honesty. It sounds pathetic when I say it out loud. It sounds human. Ava looked at her. Mia continued quieter now. You loved a man who made you feel alone in rooms full of people. That kind of thing takes time to leave your body. Ava swallowed. I left because I loved myself more. I know. But some days, Ava whispered, it still feels like I left my heart in that house. Mia set her noodles down. No, you carried it out, it's just bruised. Ava closed her eyes for a second. Her phone buzzed on the table. Grant's name lit the screen. Dinner tomorrow. Mia leaned over. Is that him? Ava nodded. Mia studied her face. You do not owe Normal a chance if Normal feels wrong. Ava picked up the phone. I know. She stared at the message. Grant was not Roman. That was the point. He would not make a restaurant go silent by entering it. He would not own half the fear in Chicago. He would not look at her with those dark eyes that seemed to notice everything except the one thing she needed him to see. Grant would talk too much. Maybe that would be good. Maybe boredom was safer than longing. Ava typed, Sure, one dinner. The reply came quickly. Great. I know a place in Gold Coast. You'll love it. Ava stared at the words. You'll love it. She should have noticed the assumption. She almost did. But Mia was talking again, the radiator was knocking, and outside her window Chicago moved on without asking whether she was ready. So Ava set the phone down and reached for her wine. Across the city, beyond the bright streets and the restless lake wind, the Callahan estate stood lit against the dark. Every window in its proper place, every room in order, and one folded letter waiting on Roman Callahan's desk like a silence he had not yet learned how to hear. Roman Callahan did not find the letter until morning. He had returned to his office sometime after 2, long after the last car left the estate, and the house settled into the strange quiet that followed money liquor and laughter. He had been thinking about Moretti, about the call from Cicero, about a shipment that should have been routine, and now smelled like a trap. He remembered seeing Ava in the hallway once during the party, pale beneath the warm lights carrying a tray like it weighed more than crystal. He had almost asked if she was all right. Almost. Roman had built a life on almost never being enough to get anyone killed. He had sat at his desk, made 2 calls, signed 3 papers without reading them closely, and gone upstairs before sunrise, with the same empty feeling he mistook for fatigue. The letter waited in the center of his desk. Not hidden, not dramatic, just there. A folded piece of cream paper placed exactly where he could not miss it. For a moment, Roman only stared at it. He knew Ava's handwriting before he opened it. Clean, precise, steady. She wrote the way she moved through his house without wasted motion, without asking the world to notice how much care she gave it. He unfolded the paper. Mr. Callahan, thank you for the opportunity. I am resigning from my position effective immediately. I wish you well. Roman read it once, then again. A third time, slower, as if the words might rearrange themselves into an explanation if he stared long enough. They did not. No anger, no accusation, no request, no reason. The absence of feeling in it was the first thing that bothered him. The second was that he had not heard her leave. Roman Callahan heard everything in his house. A change in footsteps, a door closing too softly, a guard speaking in the wrong tone, the tremor beneath a lie. Men had tried to deceive him for years and learned quickly that Roman did not miss much. But Ava Monroe had walked out of his life in the middle of the night, and the house had not warned him. Or maybe it had. Maybe the warning had been there in the way she smiled without looking at him, in the way she had asked about the party and gone still when he gave no answer, in the way she moved through rooms like someone already practicing how to disappear. Roman folded the letter again, then unfolded it. Behind him, the office windows reflected the early gray morning. Lake Forest trees stood black against the sky. The estate was waking. Somewhere down the hall, Mrs. Bell spoke to a delivery man. A phone vibrated on his desk. His world expected him to continue. Roman placed a letter beside his coffee mug. There was no coffee. For the first time in months, Ava had not brought it. That should have been nothing. He had staff. He had money. He had people who could make coffee from beans flown in from whatever country rich men pretended made them interesting. Still, when another housekeeper brought him coffee 20 minutes later, Roman took one sip and frowned. It was too hot. Not burned. Not weak. Technically perfect. Wrong. The housekeeper noticed his expression. "Should I make another, Mr. Callahan?" Roman looked down at the chipped blue mug. Steam rose from it, sharp and impatient. "No." She nodded and left. Roman stood alone in his office, holding coffee. He did not want reading a letter that said almost nothing, and somehow made the room feel stripped bare. For the first 2 days, he told himself Ava had simply moved on. People left jobs all the time. Good employees found better work. Smart women wanted quieter lives. She had served his house with discipline and grace, and perhaps she had decided that Roman Callahan's world was not worth the long hours. The closed doors, the men with guns, the women who came dressed for attention and left before morning. That was reasonable. That was respectable. That was the version Roman chose because it required nothing from him except acceptance. On the 3rd day, he found himself waiting for her in the east hallway. He had not meant to. He left a meeting and turned toward the kitchen, already expecting to see her by the side table with a folder in one hand and that calm look she wore when a problem had already been solved before anyone else knew it existed. The hallway was empty. A young staff member hurried past with folded linens and nearly dropped them when she saw him. Roman stepped aside. She looked terrified. Ava never looked terrified. That thought came before he could stop it. He went to the east room instead. The gardenias were still there, cream petals against green walls. She had been right. They softened the room. Roman stood in the doorway longer than necessary. Behind him, Nolan Briggs approached without making a sound. Nolan had been with Roman for 7 years, long enough to know when silence needed guarding. "Car is ready," Nolan said. Roman did not move. Nolan followed his gaze into the room. "Flowers look nice." Roman glanced at him. Nolan's face remained blank. Roman said, "They're wrong." Nolan looked back at the gardenias. "They look right to me." Roman said nothing. Nolan understood enough to stop talking. The days that followed were full. That was how Roman preferred life. Full days left less space for thought. There were meetings downtown, a conversation with the union man who had forgotten his place, a late visit to a warehouse near the river, where 2 of Roman's men had allowed a shipment to sit unattended for 11 minutes. Roman handled each matter with clean precision. No shouting. No wasted threats. He had learned from his father that anger made men sloppy. Roman was not sloppy. Yet at night, when the estate quieted, the absence returned. It lived in details. The library lamp was set too bright. His gray coat was hung with the collar folded incorrectly. The study smelled faintly of lemon polish instead of cedar. His office windows were cleaned at noon instead of morning, so the low light caught streaks he would not have noticed before Ava. The house remained immaculate, but its order no longer felt intelligent. It felt performed. One evening after a dinner he ended early, Roman walked into the west room and found a lipstick-stained glass on a side table. The staff had missed it. That never happened when Ava was there. He picked it up. Dark red on crystal. Something tightened in his chest, sudden and unreasonable. He remembered the woman in the red dress from the party. He remembered her hand on his arm. He remembered Ava passing through the edge of the room, eyes lowered, face composed. Had she seen? Of course she had seen. Ava saw everything. Roman set the glass down with enough force that the base clicked hard against the table. Nolan, standing near the doorway, glanced at it. Roman asked, "Did she say anything before she left?" Nolan did not pretend not to know who she was. Number. To anyone. "Not that I heard." Roman looked toward the cold fireplace. "Find out." Nolan waited. Roman turned. Carefully. The next afternoon, Mrs. Bell came to his office with a stack of household reports. She was old enough to have worked for Roman's father and brave enough to tell Roman when he was being unreasonable, though she never used that word. Roman signed the first page. Miss Monroe left no forwarding address with payroll. Mrs. Bell's hands paused over the papers. "No, sir. She gave notice to you." "No." Roman looked up. Mrs. Bell met his eyes. "She left the letter on your desk. I know what she did." Mrs. Bell did not flinch. For a moment, Roman saw Ava in that same steadiness. Not defiance. Not disrespect. Something harder to command. Truth. Mrs. Bell said she was very professional. Roman looked back at the paper. Yes, she always was. Mrs. Bell remained where she was. Roman signed another form. "You have something else to say?" "I do." He set the pen down. Mrs. Bell's voice stayed calm. "That girl gave this house more heart than most people gave it loyalty." Roman's eyes sharpened. "She was paid for her work." "She was paid for her time," Mrs. Bell said. "Not for the way she noticed you." The room went still. Roman's face did not change, but the silence around him did. Mrs. Bell lowered her gaze, not in fear, but because she had said what she came to say. "I'll send the updated staffing schedule by dinner." She left before Roman answered. Roman sat there for a long time. "The way she noticed you." He reached for the drawer and took out Ava's letter again. The paper had begun to soften at the folds. He read the 3 sentences. This time they did not look empty. They looked restrained. Restraint was not indifference. Roman knew restraint. He had lived by it. Restraint meant there was more beneath the surface than a person allowed the world to touch. What had Ava kept from him? The question followed him into the night. It followed him through meetings, through negotiations, through the sharp choreography of men pretending not to fear him. It followed him when he passed the kitchen and did not smell her coffee. It followed him when a new assistant placed call notes on his desk in the wrong order. It followed him when a woman touched his sleeve at a fundraiser and he stepped away without thinking. She looked startled. Roman felt nothing. No guilt. No desire. Only irritation that he had ever allowed strangers close enough for Ava to feel replaced by them. The realization came slowly because Roman resisted it. He did not miss Ava because she was useful. He missed the way the world felt less hostile when she was near. That was more dangerous. Useful people could be replaced. Good staff could be hired. Loyalty could be purchased, pressured, inherited, or enforced. But peace could not. Roman had mistaken Ava's quiet for softness. He had mistaken her patience for distance. He had mistaken her presence for something guaranteed because he was a man accustomed to things staying where he put them. Ava had not stayed, and the space she left behind refused to close. 2 weeks after she resigned, Roman saw her by accident. He had just left a private meeting in River North. Rain had passed through the city and left the pavement shining under late afternoon light. Nolan drove slowly through traffic, one hand loose on the wheel, eyes always watching more than the road. At a red light, Nolan's gaze shifted. Roman noticed. "What?" Nolan hesitated. Across the street. Roman looked. Ava stood outside a coffee shop with her phone against her ear. Her hair was loose around her shoulders. She wore a camel coat, dark jeans, and boots. A paper bag hung from one wrist. She was laughing. Not politely. Not carefully. Laughing from somewhere real. Roman went still. The city moved around her. A cyclist cut through traffic. A woman with a stroller passed behind her. Steam rose from a street grate. Ava turned slightly smiling into the phone, and Roman saw a version of her that had never existed inside his house. Lighter, not untouched by pain, but free from waiting. Nolan asked quietly, "You want me to pull over?" Roman watched Ava tuck her hair behind one ear. Number. The word came out rougher than he intended. Nolan did not move. The light changed. A horn sounded behind them. Still, for 1 second, Roman did not tell Nolan to drive. Ava finished the call and began walking north, disappearing into the current of pedestrians. Roman could have stepped out. He could have said her name. He could have asked why she left, though he was beginning to understand. He could have offered money, better hours, an apology he had not yet earned the right to give. He did none of it. "Drive," he said. The car moved forward. Roman watched the place where she had been until the city swallowed it. That night he did not sleep. He sat in the library with Ava's letter on the table beside him and a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. Outside, the trees moved in the wind. The estate creaked softly, old bones settling. He remembered her laugh from the sidewalk. He remembered how it had looked on her face. He realized with a cold clarity that Ava had not left the house. She had left him. The distinction mattered. It cut deeper. In the morning, Roman called Nolan into his office. "Find out where she works." Nolan's eyes revealed nothing. "Yes, and where she lives." A pause. Roman looked up. Nolan said, "Does she know we're looking?" Roman's expression hardened. "No." "You want contact?" "No." "Protection." Roman leaned back. The word settled between them like a loaded weapon. "Yes." Nolan waited. Roman understood the question without it being spoken. "From what?" Roman looked toward the drawer that held Ava's letter. "From anything attached to me." Nolan nodded once. "I'll keep it clean," distant Roman said. "If she sees you, you're too close. If she feels watched, you report to me before you breathe wrong." "Understood." Roman's security network moved quietly. Ava worked at a design firm, Helena Price Interiors. Small, but respected. She lived in Wicker Park, 3rd floor, walk up decent locks, bad lighting in the rear alley. She took the train most mornings. She met a friend, Mia Alvarez, often enough that Nolan said the woman had a protective streak and a mouth that could start wars. Roman almost smiled at that. Almost. The reports were brief because Roman demanded they be brief. He did not want photographs unless there was risk. He did not want details of her private conversations. He did not want to know what she bought, what she wore, what she watched, what made her smile. That was what he told himself. But wanting was not obedient. He wanted to know everything. He allowed himself only what safety required. Then Grant Whitaker appeared. At first, Grant was just a name in a report. Finance consultant. Clean record on paper. Too clean. He met Ava at a client event. Asked her to dinner. Worked recently with a holding company connected to a shipping firm that had moved money through Moretti channels. Roman read the report twice. Nolan stood across the desk. "Could be coincidence," Nolan said. Roman looked at him. Nolan corrected himself. "It isn't." Roman placed the report down. What did he ask her? At the event, work questions. Where she trained. What kind of home she handled. Then he asked if private estate work was interesting. Roman's eyes went flat. Nolan continued. He knew enough to be careful. Moretti. Likely. Roman stood and walked to the window. Vincent Moretti had been testing borders for months. A delayed shipment, a bought cop, a man in Cicero asking the wrong questions. Roman had expected pressure against Warehouse's roots, accounts maybe a cousin with a gambling problem. Not Ava. Ava had been in his house for almost a year. She had seen faces, heard names. Not enough to understand business, perhaps, but enough for a rival to wonder what she knew. Enough for a careless man to approach her with dinner and a smile. Roman's hand closed around the edge of the window frame. "She doesn't know." "No," Nolan said, "I don't think she does." Roman saw Ava across the street again, laughing into her phone, free of him. He saw Grant sitting across from her asking questions with clean hands, and someone else's shadow behind him. "Watch the date," Roman said. Nolan nodded. No contact unless there's immediate danger. Roman turned from the window. If he says my name, you call me. The night of Ava's date, Roman told himself he would stay away. He was still telling himself that when his car stopped across from the Gold Coast restaurant and rain slid in silver lines down the windows. Inside, warm light spilled over polished floors and white tablecloths. Through the glass, Roman could see Ava seated near the center of the room. She looked beautiful. That was not new. What was new was the sharp discomfort in his chest when she smiled at another man. No, not smiled. Performed. Roman knew the difference now. Ava's polite smile had history. He had watched her use it with drunk guests, rude contractors, delivery men who blamed her for their own mistakes. It was a shield shaped like grace. Grant leaned forward too much. He talked with his hands. He touched the wine list like he owned the table. Ava's shoulders were relaxed to anyone else. Roman saw the tension beneath them. Nolan sat in the front seat silent. Roman checked his watch. "You don't have to look," Nolan said. Roman's eyes did not leave the window. "Yes, I do." Minutes passed. Grant ordered without handing Ava the menu. Roman's jaw tightened. A waiter approached. Ava nodded, still smiling, still enduring. Then Nolan's phone buzzed. He looked down. His face changed by less than an inch. Roman saw it. "What?" Nolan read the message from the man inside. Grant asked if Roman Callahan ever talked business around her. The car became very quiet. Roman opened the door. Nolan said Roman, not boss. Roman. A warning. Roman stepped into the rain. Every instinct he owned moved at once. Rage, fear, regret, possession, protection. The old language of his life rose first brutal and simple. Threaten. Remove. Control the room. End the danger before it breathes twice. But beneath it was something worse. Ava sitting across from a man who had used normalcy as a disguise. Ava thinking she had escaped Roman's world only to have it reach for her through a dinner reservation. Ava looking trapped behind the same polite smile she once wore in his house. Roman entered the restaurant. The hostess saw him and forgot her greeting. He did not look at her. The room adjusted itself around him. Conversations lowered. A man at the bar checked Roman's face and decided his drink was suddenly interesting. A server stepped aside before Roman reached him. Ava did not turn around immediately. That hurt. That she knew him by atmosphere. Grant looked up first. Confusion crossed his face, followed by recognition he tried to hide. Roman saw it. He reached the table. There was an empty chair beside Ava. Roman pulled it out with one hand and sat. Grant blinked. Ava turned then. Her eyes widened, not with relief, with shock, then anger. Roman looked at Grant. "Get out." Grant laughed. It was thin, badly built. "Excuse me." Roman's voice stayed quiet. "She's mine." The second he said it, Ava's face changed. There were 1,000 things Roman could read in that expression now because absence had taught him a cruel fluency. Humiliation, fury, old pain. The words had landed not like protection, but like ownership. And still Roman did not take them back. Not yet. Grant sat straighter, trying to gather himself. "I don't know who you think you are, but Ava and I are having dinner." Roman looked at him until the sentence died on its own. "You asked her about me." Grant's mouth twitched. "I ask questions for a living." "No," Roman said. "You ask questions for Moretti." The blood left Grant's face. Ava went still beside him. Around them, the restaurant pretended not to listen and failed. Grant pushed his chair back. "This is a misunderstanding." Roman leaned back slightly. "I'm giving you one chance to keep calling it that." Grant swallowed. His eyes flicked toward the bar. Roman followed the movement without turning his head. The man who had been watching from the bar set cash on the counter and walked out. Nolan would see him. Grant stood too quickly. "You people are insane." Roman said nothing. Grant grabbed his coat and left with the stiff pride of a man who knew fear had already embarrassed him more than running could. Ava stood the moment he was gone. "You don't get to do that." Roman looked up at her. "I know." "No, you don't." Her voice was low-controlled, shaking only at the edges. You don't get to come back after 3 months and say that in front of a room full of people like I'm some piece of property you misplaced. Every word struck exactly where it belonged. Roman accepted them. I shouldn't have said it like that. But you meant it. A pause. The honest answer was the only one he had left. Yes. Her laugh was quiet and wounded. Of course you did. Roman rose, not moving toward her. He was asking about me. So you humiliated me for my own good? No. Ava's eyes flashed. Then why? Because he had seen her smile at another man and felt the world tilt. Because the thought of losing her had become real only after he had already lost her. Because he had spent 3 months learning the shape of regret and still reached for the language of ownership when fear got its hand around his throat. Roman said only what mattered first. Because he was not there for you. That reached her. Only slightly. But enough. What does that mean? Grant has ties to Moretti. The name touched her face like cold air. Roman kept his voice even. He's been asking about people who worked in my house. Ava looked toward the door Grant had used. You knew. I suspected. And you didn't tell me. Roman had no defense. Number. Her anger shifted into something heavier. There it is. Ava. No. She stepped back. You do not get to make decisions about my safety without me, and then call it protection. The words silenced him more completely than any threat could have. A waiter approached, pale and uncertain. Is everything all right? Roman looked at Ava. This was her room now. Her answer. Her choice. Ava noticed. Her lips pressed together. Then she gave the waiter a small, practiced smile that Roman suddenly hated because he knew how much pain it could hide. We're fine. The waiter looked between them, then nodded and escaped. Ava grabbed her coat from the chair. I'm leaving. Roman stepped aside at once. She seemed almost startled that he did. He forced himself not to reach for her. Not her arm. Not her hand. Not even the sleeve of her coat as it brushed the table. I'll walk behind you, he said. Ava's mouth tightened. I don't need you to walk anywhere. No, Roman said. But the man at the bar left when Grant did. She froze. Only for a second. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Roman followed, keeping distance. Outside, Chicago rain had softened to mist. Streetlights blurred gold on the wet pavement. Ava moved fast, her heels striking the sidewalk with sharp little sounds. Nolan stood near the curb beside the car. Roman gave him one look. Nolan nodded and disappeared down the street after the man from the bar. Ava saw the exchange. Of course, she said bitterly. You brought an army. One man. That's your version of restraint. Roman almost smiled. The moment would have been dangerous if it had not hurt so much. She reached her car and turned on him beneath the glow of a street lamp. Why now? Roman stopped several feet away. The rain gathered in his hair and darkened the shoulders of his coat. Ava's face was pale, furious beautiful in a way that made his chest ache. Why tonight, she demanded. Why not when I left? Why not when I was still in that house waiting for you to notice I was breaking? Roman's control tightened until it became pain. I thought letting you leave was respect. Her eyes shone. It was indifference. The word hit clean. Roman did not flinch. He deserved it. I know that now. Now, she whispered, you keep saying that like it can give me back what I lost. No, Roman said, it can't. That stopped her for half a breath. He continued, voice lower. I did not come here to drag you back. I did not come to make a claim in front of strangers, even though that's what I did. I came because a man connected to my enemy was sitting across from you asking questions he had no right to ask. Ava stared at him, and the rest. Roman held her gaze. The street seemed to narrow until there was only her reign, and the truth he had arrived at too late. The rest is that I saw you with him and understood I might never hear your voice in my house again. Her fingers tightened around her keys. You don't get to be jealous. I know. You don't get to miss me now. I know. You don't get to decide I mattered after I had to leave to prove it to myself. Roman's throat worked once. I know. Ava looked away first. That hurt more than her anger. She opened her car door. Roman stayed where he was. Before she got in, she asked quietly, Did you read my letter? Yes. Her face changed. And you still let me go. Roman's voice came out rough. I read it every day before I understood it. Ava looked at him through the mist. What did you think it meant? Roman remembered the cream paper, the 3 clean sentences, the terrible restraint. I thought you were being professional. Ava gave a small, broken laugh. I was trying not to beg. The words opened something in him that no violence ever had. Ava got into the car and closed the door. The lock clicked. Roman stood outside, hands empty at his sides, watching her start the engine. Nolan returned from the far corner and stopped several paces away. Barman got into a black sedan. Plates covered. Moretti's people. Roman nodded once. Ava's headlights came on. For a moment, through the rain-streaked glass, her eyes met Roman's. He did not move closer. He did not signal. He did not ask her to roll down the window. She drove away. Nolan watched the car turn onto the avenue. You protected her, he said. Roman kept his gaze on the empty street long after her taillights vanished. No, he said. His voice was quiet enough that the rain nearly took it. I reminded her why she left. The farther Ava drove from the restaurant, the quieter Chicago became. Rain swept across the windshield in thin silver lines, and the wipers moved with a tired rhythm that matched the pulse still beating too hard in her throat. Gold Coast lights stretched and broke across the wet street. Taxis hissed past. A couple hurried under one umbrella near a corner, laughing, as if the city had not just opened an old wound in the middle of Ava's life and left her bleeding behind the wheel. Her hands stayed locked around the steering wheel. She had told herself she was fine so many times in the last 3 months that the words had lost shape. Fine at work. Fine when Mia asked. Fine when she passed a man in a dark coat and felt her chest tighten before she realized it was not Roman. Fine when she made coffee in her small kitchen and waited 40 seconds out of habit before remembering no one there needed it. She had been fine because fine was useful. Fine got her out of bed. Fine paid rent. Fine kept her from texting him. Tonight, fine cracked. Roman Callahan had walked into that restaurant like a storm, wearing a tailored coat pulled up a chair, and said the one thing she had once wanted to hear in 100 different ways. She's mine. Except when he finally said it, it felt nothing like love. It felt like being reduced. It felt like every quiet hour she had spent in his house had been misunderstood even by the man at the center of them. Ava turned onto a narrower street away from the brighter avenues. Her apartment building came into view above the closed flower shop, 3 floors of old brick and black fire escapes. The sign over the coffee place next door flickered in the rain. She parked at the curb but did not get out. The engine hummed. Her breathing sounded too loud. Her phone buzzed in the passenger seat. Mia. How was the date? Ava stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then it buzzed again. Did he wear loafers? He looked like a loafer man. Ava almost laughed. The sound caught in her chest instead. She picked up the phone and typed with stiff fingers. Roman showed up. The call came before she could set the phone down. Ava let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then she answered. Mia did not say hello. Where are you? Outside my apartment. Are you alone? Ava looked through the rain-blurred windshield at the street. A delivery cyclist passed. A woman walked a small dog in a yellow raincoat. No black car idled behind her. No figure stood in a doorway. Yes. Is he there? No. A pause, sharp with disbelief. He left you alone. Ava closed her eyes. I told him to. And he listened. Ava opened her eyes again. The answer should not have mattered. It did. Yes. Mia went quiet for a beat. That worries me more. Ava leaned her head back against the seat. He said Grant was connected to Moretti. The Moretti from his world. Yes. Mia cursed softly. The word fogged the space between them. Ava whispered Grant asked if Roman ever talked business around me. Mia's voice changed. Did you tell him anything? No. I barely had time to process the question before Roman appeared. Of course he appeared. Men like that always appear when the damage is already dressed for dinner. Ava smiled faintly, then pressed her fingers to her eyes. He said he read my letter. Mia's anger softened at the edges. And Ava swallowed. He said he read it every day before he understood it. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Rain tapped against the roof of the car. Mia said, "Ava, I know. You do not know because, if you knew, you would already be upstairs with your deadbolt locked and a blanket over your head, instead of sitting in the cold thinking about his sad little confession. It wasn't little. No, I know." Mia sighed. "That's the problem." Ava looked up at the dark windows of her apartment. "I wanted him to understand for so long." "I know. And now he does," maybe Mia said. "Or maybe he understands losing you. That is not the same as understanding loving you." Ava sat with that. A taxi passed slowly, its headlights cutting across her dashboard. For 1 second, the interior of the car flashed bright, and Ava caught sight of herself in the rearview mirror. Wet eyes, pale face, mouth pressed tight to keep something from breaking. "I hate that I still care," she said. Mia's voice gentled. "No, you don't. You hate that caring makes you vulnerable to someone who already hurt you." Ava breathed out slowly. "I don't know what to do." "You do what you did the first time. You choose yourself first. If he wants to stand near that choice, he can learn how without stepping on it." Ava nodded, even though Mia could not see. "I'm coming over," Mia said. "No, it's late. I asked what I'm doing not for your permission." "Mia, I am already putting on shoes." Ava looked toward the building again. The third-floor window of her apartment was dark, small, ordinary, safe. "I'll be upstairs. Lock the door." "I will." "And, Ava, yes, a man can protect you from danger and still be dangerous to your peace." Ava closed her eyes. "I know." She ended the call and sat another minute in the car. Then a message appeared from an unknown number. She knew before opening it. "I won't come near you again unless you ask me to." But Grant Whitaker was not a coincidence. Ava stared at the words. Another message arrived before she could respond. "I handled it badly. I'm sorry." The apology looked strange on the screen. Roman had said sorry before, probably. To business partners. To old women at charity dinners. To strangers when manners required it. But Ava could not remember him ever offering one that stood alone without explanation, command, or expectation. She typed again. Then she turned the phone face down. Not tonight. She got out of the car and crossed the sidewalk under the rain. The stairwell smelled like damp wool and old wood. Her boots sounded too loud on the steps. By the time she reached her apartment, her hands had steadied, but the rest of her had not. She locked the door, then locked it again. Then stood in the center of the room with her coat still on. The apartment looked exactly the way she had left it. A mug in the sink, a folded blanket on the couch, a stack of fabric samples on the table. Basil on the windowsill, leaves tilted toward the streetlight. Nothing had changed. Everything had. She took off her coat slowly. When Mia arrived 20 minutes later with wet hair sweatpants and a tote bag full of snacks she clearly did not need, Ava was sitting on the floor beside the couch. Mia stepped in, took one look at her, and set the bag down. "Oh, honey, that was all it took." Ava covered her face and the tears came. Not the silent ones from the night she left the estate. These were rougher, less dignified. The kind that shook the body because the body finally understood no one was asking it to perform. Mia sat beside her and pulled her close. Ava cried into her friend's shoulder while the rain hit the window and Chicago moved on below. When the worst passed, Mia handed her a napkin and a container of dumplings. Ava looked at it. "Why do you have dumplings?" "Emergency dumplings. That's not a thing. It is in this apartment." Ava let out a broken laugh. Mia watched her carefully. "Tell me everything." So Ava did. She told her about Grant ordering for her. About the question. About the way the room changed before Roman spoke. About the chair. About the words. About Grant's face going pale when Roman said Moretti's name. About Roman standing in the rain and not reaching for her, even though every inch of him looked like restraint was costing him. Mia listened without interrupting. That was how Ava knew she was scared. When Ava finished, Mia leaned back against the couch. "Well," she said, I hate him slightly less than I expected to. Ava gave her a look. Do not look relieved. Slightly is doing hard labor in that sentence. He said he won't come near me unless I ask. Good. He also said Grant was connected to Moretti. Also, good to know. Ava looked down at her hands. I should be furious about the watching. You are. I'm also relieved. Mia sighed. Both can be true. I hate that. Most true things are rude. Ava wiped beneath her eyes. What if he really has changed? Mia's face softened, but her voice stayed firm. Then he can keep changing when it is inconvenient. He can change when you say no. He can change when you need time. He can change when you do not reward him for doing the bare minimum after breaking your heart. Ava nodded slowly. He asked for nothing tonight. Then let that be the first correct thing he has done. Mia reached for Ava's phone from the coffee table, then paused. May I? Ava nodded. Mia read the messages. Her mouth tightened at the first one, softened a little at the second. He writes like a man who thinks punctuation is a weakness. Ava laughed despite herself. Mia handed the phone back. Do you want to answer? Ava looked at the screen. Roman's apology waited in its small green silence. Number. Mia smiled. Good. Ava set the phone down. But all night, even after Mia fell asleep on the couch under the green blanket, Ava lay awake in bed with Roman's voice returning again and again. I read it every day before I understood it. She stared at the ceiling until dawn blurred pale behind the curtains. Across the city, Roman did not sleep either. He returned to the estate just after midnight, rain still clinging to his coat. Nolan followed him inside, quiet as ever. The house was dim, all its expensive rooms waiting with the wrong kind of order. Roman went straight to his office. The letter was in the drawer. He took it out and placed it on the desk. For the first time, he did not read it. He only looked at it. Nolan stood near the door. The man from the bar belongs to Moretti, low level. Name is Peter Voss. He was not alone tonight. Roman's gaze stayed on the letter. Find out how close they got to her. Yes. And Grant, home, shaken. He made 2 calls, one to his employer, one to a number tied to Moretti's people. Roman's hand flexed once on the desk. Let him breathe for now. Nolan lifted an eyebrow. Roman looked up. If I move tonight, Ava will think I used her fear as an excuse to start a war. Nolan nodded slowly. You care what she thinks. Roman's eyes sharpened. Nolan did not apologize. Roman leaned back in his chair. Yes, the words sat strangely in the room. Not because it was untrue, because it was bare. Nolan said, What do you want me to do about her? Roman looked at Ava's folded letter. Nothing. Nolan waited. Roman said, no one near her building unless Moretti moves. No one follows her to work. No reports unless it concerns direct danger. You want to pull back. I want her to breathe. Nolan studied him for a moment. Then he nodded. I'll adjust the detail. Roman glanced toward the window. His reflection looked back at him from the dark glass. Hard face. Dark eyes. A man who had learned too late that control was not the same as care. And Nolan. Yes, if she calls, you do not answer for me, you find me. Nolan almost smiled. Understood. After Nolan left, Roman sat alone. His phone lay on the desk. He had already sent the apology. He had already promised not to come near her unless she asked. The harder part was keeping that promise. Every instinct told him to act. To secure her building. To bring Grant in. To send men after Moretti's tail. To stand outside her door until morning because fear had always given Roman permission to become useful. But Ava had not asked for useful. She had asked with every word she threw at him in the rain not to be managed. So Roman did nothing. He stayed in his office until sunrise, letting the inaction burn through him like a punishment he had earned. The next day moved slowly for Ava. She went to work because she refused to let Roman Callahan ruin her schedule from a distance. Helena noticed the shadows under her eyes the moment Ava walked into the studio. You look like a woman who either had bad wine or saw a ghost. Ava hung her coat. Both maybe. Helena looked over her red glasses. Do you need the day? Number. Do you need to pretend you do not need the day? Ava smiled weakly. That one. Helena nodded. Fine. Pretend at your desk. The Anderson plans need revisions and Mrs. Anderson has decided beige is too violent. Work held Ava together until noon. She measured fabric, answered emails, redrew a seating plan, told a client that a dining room could not have 6 focal points unless they wanted guests to feel hunted. Her phone sat face down beside her keyboard. Every time it buzzed, her body reacted before her mind could stop it. None of the messages were Roman. By evening, her exhaustion had turned sharp and clean. She made soup she did not eat and sat at her kitchen table while the city darkened beyond the window. At 7:40, her phone lit up. Roman. If you're willing, I'd like to explain what happened with Grant. Somewhere public. Somewhere you choose. Ava read it 3 times. No demand. No time. No place chosen for her. Somewhere you choose. She set the phone down and walked to the sink. The radiator knocked. A siren passed far away. Basil leaves trembled slightly in the draft from the window. She picked up the phone again. 1 hour. Public place. No guards at the table. No orders. His answer came after several seconds. Agreed. Ava typed again. If I leave you, do not follow. This pause was longer. She watched the 3 dots disappear, then appear again. Agreed. Ava stared at that single word until it blurred. Then she sent him the address of a small diner near the river. It had cracked vinyl booths, bad coffee, and a waitress named Sandy who called everyone sweetheart with the same level of suspicion. Roman replied, I'll be there. Ava almost typed something else. She did not. At 7 the next evening, Ava arrived at the diner 15 minutes early. She chose a booth near the window with a clear view of the entrance. Not because she was afraid, she told herself, because she was learning from experience. The diner smelled like coffee, fried onions, and old sugar. A couple of college students argued over fries near the back. A man in a Cubs cap read the paper at the counter. Sandy moved between tables with a pot of coffee in one hand and a pencil stuck behind her ear. You waiting on someone, sweetheart? Yes. Good someone or bad someone? Ava looked toward the door. I'll let you know. Sandy hummed. That means handsome and dangerous. Ava looked at her. Sandy poured coffee into Ava's cup. I've been doing this 30 years. Nobody looks at the door like that for an accountant. Ava almost smiled. Then Roman walked in. The diner did not freeze. That alone made the moment strange. No one knew him here, or if they did, they were smart enough to keep eating. Roman stood just inside the entrance in a dark coat, hair. Slightly wind touched his presence too large for the narrow aisle and fluorescent lights. His eyes found Ava. He did not come closer right away. He looked around once, not as a predator, but as a man checking exits out of habit. Then he walked to her booth and stopped beside it. May I sit? Ava kept her face still. That is new. His gaze did not leave hers. I'm learning. She gestured to the seat across from her. Roman sat. He looked wrong in the diner. Not uncomfortable. Roman was too disciplined for that. But out of place like a marble statue left in a laundromat. Sandy appeared with the coffee pot. You want coffee? Roman glanced at Ava's cup. Yes, please. Ava lifted an eyebrow after Sandy moved away. You hate diner coffee. I do. Then why order it? I am trying not to make this about what I prefer. That answer was too good. Ava did not like how much she liked it. She wrapped both hands around her mug. Start with Grant. Roman nodded. No preamble. No charm. Grant Whitaker has done consulting work for a shell company tied to Vincent Moretti. Moretti has been testing my operations for months. Last week, one of my men heard that someone was asking about former staff from my house. Your name came up. Ava's stomach tightened. Why would my name come up? Because you worked close to me. I managed rooms and flowers and schedules. You were in the house. I do not know anything. I know. The quickness of his answer steadied her and angered her at the same time. Roman continued. Moretti may not know that, or he may not care. People like him collect leverage first and decide its value later. Ava looked out the window. A bus sighed to a stop at the corner. People climbed on under a dull wash of streetlight. So Grant was bait. Yes. And you knew before the restaurant. I suspected. She turned back to him. How long? Roman's jaw tightened. A few days. Ava's voice sharpened. You had a few days to warn me. Yes. But you decided not to. Yes. Sandy passed by and slowed, sensing weather at the table. Ava gave her a faint smile. Sandy moved on, but not far. Roman leaned forward slightly, forearms on the table, hands open. I told myself warning you would pull you back into my world. Ava laughed once. You do not get to keep me ignorant and call it mercy. I know. There it is again. His face remained controlled, but his eyes did not. I am not saying it because I think it fixes anything. Then why do you keep saying it? Because I need you to know I am not arguing with the truth. Ava sat back. The words found a place in her she had not meant to leave open. She hated that too. The coffee between them cooled. Roman did not touch his. Ava noticed. Of course she did. You followed me. Roman's eyes held hers. I had people watch from a distance. That sounds worse when you say it calmly. I know. Roman. His name came out tired. He looked down for the first time. I told myself it was protection. Some of it was, not all. Ava's throat tightened. What was the rest? He answered without looking away this time. I missed you. The diner noise seemed to recede. A fork struck a plate somewhere behind them. Sandy called an order through the pass window. Rain began again, soft against the glass. Ava forced air into her lungs. You do not get to make that romantic. I am not trying to. You watched me because you missed me. Yes, that is not romantic. That is not noble. That is terrifying if you say it wrong. I know. And selfish, yes. The simple acceptance left her with nowhere to put the next blow. So she reached for the old one. You embarrassed me. Roman nodded. At the restaurant. No. Ava's fingers tightened around the mug. Before that. His stillness changed. She looked at him across the table, this man half the city feared, and felt the old hurt rise with a clarity that almost made her dizzy. You embarrassed me every time I had to stand in a room and pretend it did not hurt to see someone else touching you. Roman said nothing. Good. For once, he seemed to understand that silence was not always avoidance. Sometimes, silence was space. Ava continued. I cleaned lipstick off glasses. I changed sheets. I straightened rooms after women left laughing. I heard them ask about you like you were a prize they might take home for the night. Her voice lowered, and I kept thinking, maybe if I am good enough, patient enough, quiet enough, you will see me. Roman's hand closed slowly on the edge of the table. Ava saw it. She kept going. But you did not see me. You noticed me. You noticed the coffee was right. You noticed the flowers looked better. You noticed when a room felt calm, but you did not see the woman making it that way. Roman's voice came rough. You're right. Ava blinked. She had expected defense, explanation, some careful distinction meant to soften his guilt. He gave her none. I noticed your care, he said. I noticed your steadiness. I noticed that the house felt less violent when you moved through it. I noticed every result of loving you should have made me ask what it was costing you. Her eyes burned. But you didn't. No. Why? Roman looked at his untouched coffee. The fluorescent light cut shadows beneath his cheekbones. For the first time, he looked less like a man made of control and more like one holding broken glass behind his teeth. Because if I asked, I would have had to answer something in myself. Ava swallowed. Meaning. His gaze returned to hers, meaning I knew there was something different about you. I knew I looked for you in rooms. I knew your absence changed the air before I understood why. But wanting anything real felt dangerous, so I treated it like it was not there. Ava's laugh was small and painful. How convenient for you. Yes. She looked away. Roman's voice dropped. Ava. She did not turn back immediately. He waited. That mattered. When she finally looked at him again, he said, "I am sorry for making you love me alone." The apology struck deeper than she expected, because it named the wound exactly. Ava pressed her lips together. For a moment, she was afraid if she opened her mouth the sound would not be anger. It would be grief. Roman did not reach across the table. He did not say her name again. He let the apology sit between them without asking her to pick it up. Sandy returned with a plate of fries neither of them had ordered. Ava looked up. Sandy shrugged. "Kitchen made extra." Roman glanced at the plate. Ava said, "She thinks you're dangerous." Sandy, already walking away, called back, "I think he's handsome and dangerous." Different category. Ava almost laughed. Roman looked genuinely uncertain what to do with that. It helped. A little. Ava picked up a fry. "You are not good at diners." "No. You look like you are waiting for someone to confess." "I usually am." The corner of her mouth moved before she could stop it. Roman saw it, and something in his face softened so quickly it hurt to look at. Ava set the fry down. "Do not look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like every small thing I do matters now." Roman's answer came quietly. "It does." Ava looked down. The anger was still there. The hurt, too. But under it, dangerous and unwelcome, was the warmth of being heard. She checked the time. Roman followed her gaze. "The hour is nearly over," he said. Ava looked back at him, and he reached into his coat pocket, took out his phone, and placed it face down on the table. "And I said no pressure." She waited. He said nothing else. "You are not going to ask for more time." "No." "Why?" "Because I want it." That made her breath catch. Roman continued. "And wanting something does not give me the right to take it." The diner noise filled the silence again. Ava looked out at the rain. She could leave. He would let her. That was the first thing Roman had given her that did not feel heavy. Choice. She slid from the booth and stood. Roman stood too but did not move into the aisle until she had her coat on. Ava left cash on the table. Roman glanced at it but did not reach for the bill. Outside, the rain had softened to mist again. The city smelled like wet pavement and river wind. They walked side by side toward Ava's car. Not touching. Not quite distant either. Their reflections moved along dark shop windows, two figures shaped by history and restraint. At the curb, Ava stopped. "This does not mean I trust you." Roman faced her. "I know. And I am still angry." "You should be. And if I tell you never to contact me again." His expression tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "Then I won't." Ava studied him. "Even if Moretti is still out there." Roman's jaw worked once. "I would find another way to keep trouble away from you without making myself part of your life." She believed him. That frightened her more than doubt would have. Her fingers curled around her car keys. "Do you know what I wanted from you back then?" Roman did not answer too quickly. "No." That honesty loosened something in her chest. "I wanted you to ask me to stay before I had to leave." His eyes darkened with pain. "I should have." "Yes, I know." Ava looked up at the wet sky and breathed in. Then she said, "Do not follow me tonight." "I won't." "No men outside my building." "I already pulled them back." She looked at him sharply. "When?" "Last night." "Why?" "Because you were right." The answer was almost too much. Ava opened her car door. Before getting in, she turned once more. "You get one chance to prove this is not just regret." Roman nodded. "I understand." "No, Roman. I need you to really hear me. I am not coming back to that house as a shadow. I am not becoming some secret you keep between business calls. I am not letting your fear dress itself up as protection and make decisions for me." Roman's gaze did not move. "I hear you. If I let you near me again, it will be because I choose it. Not because you stood in a restaurant and scared away another man." His voice lowered. "Then I will wait to be chosen." The words were simple. No polish. No performance. Ava felt them anyway. She got into the car and closed the door. Roman stepped back from the curb. She started the engine. Through the glass, she watched him stand beneath the dim streetlight with rain in his hair and his hands empty at his sides. He did not move closer. He did not signal. He did not follow when she pulled away. Ava drove 2 blocks before she realized her hands were not shaking. At the next red light, her phone buzzed. Mia. Alive. Ava smiled faintly and typed, "Yes." Then, after a moment, she added, "He listened." Mia replied quickly, "Good, make him keep doing it." Ava looked in the rearview mirror. The street behind her was empty. No black car, no shadow, no Roman. Only Chicago rain falling through the light and the strange, fragile feeling of a door that had not opened yet, but had finally unlocked from the inside. The next morning, Ava woke before her alarm and reached for her phone before she could stop herself. The screen was blank. No missed calls. No messages. No Roman. For a moment, she stared at the dark glass and waited for disappointment to arrive. It did, but not in the shape she expected. It was softer than before, tangled with something dangerously close to relief. He had listened. That should not have felt like a gift. Listening was not supposed to be rare. Respect was not supposed to feel like sunlight after a long winter. But Ava had lived too long in rooms where people called silence peace, and now the quiet on her phone felt different. It did not feel like being forgotten. It felt like space. She made coffee in her small kitchen while the radiator clicked and complained near the window. The basil plant leaned toward the morning light. Outside, Wicker Park moved in its usual, uneven rhythm. Delivery trucks barking dogs, a cyclist cursing at a cab. The coffee shop downstairs opening its door with the soft jingle of a bell. Ava stood barefoot on the cold kitchen tile and took one sip. Too hot. She laughed under her breath, almost angry at the tenderness of the memory. Roman would have hated it. Then she caught herself. Roman was not in the room. Roman was not waiting for her to fix anything. She set the mug down and let it cool. At work, Helena noticed everything as usual. "You look less haunted," she said, dropping a stack of fabric books onto Ava's desk. Ava looked up from a floor plan. That is a very specific compliment. It was a very specific haunting. Ava smiled despite herself. Helena leaned against the desk and studied her over the red glasses. Did the ghost apologize? Ava's fingers paused over the pencil. Something like that. Did you believe him? Ava looked at the window where the city sky hung pale and low between buildings. "I believed that he wanted to mean it." Helena nodded as if that answer had weight. "Good. Wanting is not doing. Make sure he knows the difference." Ava looked back at the floor plan. He said a commitment is behavior. Helena gave a dry little laugh, then let him behave. The words stayed with Ava all day. By evening, she was home with a bowl of pasta she barely touched and a folded blanket across her lap. Mia had texted 3 times and called once, but Ava had answered only enough to confirm she was alive, employed, and not currently hiding Roman Callahan in her kitchen. At 7:13, her phone lit up. "Roman, I hope your day was kind to you." That was all. Ava read the sentence slowly. No question, no request, no hook hidden inside the kindness, just a wish placed gently at her door. She set the phone down, then picked it back up. "It was decent, thank you." The answer came a minute later. "I'm glad." Ava waited. Nothing else appeared. She stared at the screen until she felt foolish, then placed it face down on the couch beside her. The silence that followed felt almost rude. She lasted 9 minutes. "You can ask me now." This time his reply was immediate. "May I take you to dinner tomorrow?" Ava smiled before she could stop herself. "No expensive restaurant." A longer pause. "I know a diner with terrible coffee." "Absolutely not." "Then I'll find somewhere normal." Ava looked at the message and felt something loosen in her chest. Normal. She doubted Roman Callahan had ever done normal in his life. He probably considered a restaurant without armed men at the entrance an act of trust. Still, the next evening when he arrived at her building, he stood on the sidewalk instead of coming up. No car parked directly in front, no visible guard at his shoulder, no dark coat sharp enough to cut the rain. He wore jeans, a black sweater, and a worn leather jacket. His hair was neatly combed, but the wind had touched it enough to make him look less untouchable. Ava came down the stairs with her coat over one arm. Roman straightened when he saw her. For a second, neither of them spoke. The city filled the space for them. Tires on wet pavement. a train in the distance, music from the coffee shop downstairs, someone laughing too loudly at the corner. Roman's gaze moved over her face, then down to the simple dark green dress beneath her coat, then back up so quickly it might have been funny if it had not made her pulse trip. "You can say it," Ava said. His eyes held hers. "You look beautiful." No smirk. No hunger sharpened into possession. Just truth. Ava looked away first. "Thank you." He opened the passenger door for her when they reached his car. Not with ceremony, not like a performance, just a quiet offering. She slid in, and he closed it after making sure her coat was clear. When he got behind the wheel, she glanced around. No Nolan. Not tonight. Is he offended? Probably. Ava gave him a look. Roman's mouth curved. He hides it with professionalism. She turned toward the window before he could see how close she was to smiling. The restaurant he chose sat on a quiet corner in Lincoln Park, warm light spilling across steamed windows. Small tables, checkered napkins, a handwritten menu near the door. A place where no one cared who Roman was because everyone was too busy eating bread. Ava liked it immediately. Roman noticed. "You approve. I am cautiously impressed. That sounds better than I deserve." "It is." He accepted that with a small nod, and somehow that made her want to be kinder to him. They sat near the back. The waiter introduced himself, dropped off menus, and did not tremble. Roman looked almost relieved by it. Ava hid a smile behind her water glass. Dinner unfolded carefully at first. Ava told him about a client who wanted a peaceful bedroom, but refused to remove a neon orange chair from the center of it. Roman frowned. "Why own the chair?" She said it had energy. "What kind?" "Angry traffic cone." Roman took a sip of water and nearly smiled. "That seems difficult to design around. It is difficult to emotionally survive." He laughed, then low and surprised, and Ava felt the sound move through her like a warm hand. Roman told her about a meeting where a man had tried to deny losing money while displaying the wrong spreadsheet on a conference screen. "What did you do?" Ava asked. "I let him keep talking." "That sounds cruel." "It was educational." "For who?" "Everyone." Ava laughed, and this time she did not try to soften it. Roman watched her with that same quiet intensity, but when she looked back at him, he did not trap her in it. He glanced down, giving her room to breathe. The food came. They shared because Ava reached across the table first, taking a piece of bread from his plate without asking. Roman paused. Ava froze. "Sorry." "No," he said. "I just realized I liked it." She looked at him. "What?" "You taking something because you wanted it." The words were simple, but they carried too much history. Ava swallowed and focused on her plate. After dinner, they stepped outside into cold air that smelled faintly of rain and car exhaust. The sidewalk shone under streetlights. Ava wrapped her coat tighter around herself. A man coming out of the bar next door stumbled backward and bumped hard into her shoulder. Roman moved instantly. One step. His arm lifted not toward the man's throat, but toward Ava's waist, the old reflex ready to pull her behind him. Ava stiffened. Roman stopped before touching her. The drunk man mumbled an apology and wandered away. For a moment, Roman stood frozen, his hand half raised between them. Then he lowered it. "I'm sorry." Ava looked at him carefully. "That was almost old you." "Yes?" "But you stopped." His jaw tightened. "I felt you tense." She studied his face under the streetlight, and that mattered. His eyes met hers. It mattered more than my instinct. Ava's throat tightened. Roman looked toward the direction the man had gone, then back at her. Protecting you should not feel like erasing you. She had no defense against that sentence, not a clean one. So she started walking. Roman fell into step beside her close enough that their sleeves brushed once, then again. He did not reach for her hand. He did not fill the silence just because it had opened. By the time they reached her building, the air between them had changed. Softer, warmer, more dangerous. Ava stopped at the door. "This is where you say goodnight," she said. Roman nodded. "Yes, you really are practicing." Nolan offered notes. "That poor man. He has suffered." Ava laughed. Roman's expression softened so openly that she had to look away. Then he said, "May I hug you?" The question slipped into the space between them and stilled everything. Ava had imagined Roman touching her more times than she was proud of. In the estate hallway, in his office, at the kitchen counter while she poured his coffee. She had imagined careless touches, stolen kisses, a hand at her back that meant he had finally seen her. She had never imagined him asking. "Yes," she whispered. Roman stepped forward slowly, giving her time to change her mind. His arms came around her with careful strength. Warm, solid, controlled but not cold. Ava stood stiff for half a second, then her body recognized what her heart had wanted for too long. She softened into him, cheek against his chest, hands resting at his back. He smelled like clean soap, cold air, and something darker beneath it. Not expensive cologne, just Roman. His heartbeat was steady under her ear. For a moment, Ava let herself be held without becoming small. That was the difference. When she stepped back, he let her go at once. Their faces were close now, close enough for her to see the faint scar near his jaw, close enough to watch his eyes drop briefly to her mouth before returning to hers. He asked without words. Ava's pulse answered too fast. "Not yet," she said softly. Roman nodded immediately. "Okay." No frustration. No wounded pride. No attempt to persuade her that wanting meant permission. Ava exhaled and the breath shook more than she wanted. "Thank you. For stopping. For making it easy to say no." His voice lowered. It should have always been easy. Ava leaned up before she could think herself out of it and kissed his cheek. Brief. Soft. Deliberate. Roman went very still. Then she stepped back and opened the door. "Good night, Roman." His voice was rougher than before. "Good night, Ava." Inside her apartment, she leaned against the closed door with one hand pressed to her chest. Her phone buzzed before she had even taken off her shoes. "Thank you for trusting me tonight." Ava stared at the message until her smile faded into something more fragile. "Don't make me regret it." "I won't." She slept badly that night, but not because she was sad. That almost made it worse. Hope was louder than grief. 2 days passed before Roman asked to see her again. In that time, he sent only one message each evening. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that demanded a reply. "I hope the orange chair lost." Ava answered, "It did not. It has multiplied into throw pillows. A tragedy. A documented one." The second night he wrote, "Did you eat dinner?" She stared at that one longer. "Yes." A pause. Good. No lecture. No command. No insistence that she should take better care of herself. Just good. The third afternoon, as Ava was leaving work, Roman's name appeared on her screen. "Would you have dinner with me at my house?" "No staff, no guests. You leave whenever you want." Ava stopped beneath the awning outside Helena's studio. The street blurred around her. The Callahan estate. The words alone pulled old air into her lungs. Marble floors. Quiet halls. Red lipstick on crystal. Roman's office at dawn. The small room at the back where she had folded pain into a suitcase and called it dignity. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. "That place is complicated for me." His reply came after a minute. "I know. That's why I'm asking, not assuming." Ava closed her eyes briefly. "I drive myself." "Of course. No staff. None. If I leave you, let me. Always." That last word settled against something bruised. Ava looked down the street. Evening traffic crawled past. A woman in a red scarf argued into her phone. Steam rose from a vent near the curb. Ava typed before fear could take the phone from her hand. Tonight. 7. At 6:59, Ava turned through the gates of the Callahan estate in her own car. No guard questioned her. The gate opened before she reached it, but no one stepped out. No black SUVs lined the drive. No men watched from the stone steps. The house waited in the winter dark, lit softly from inside. Ava parked near the front instead of the service entrance. That mattered. Roman opened the door himself. He wore a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled and no shoes. His hair was slightly messy, as if he had run his hands through it too many times. Behind him, the house glowed warm and quiet. No music, no strangers, no perfume, no laughter from rooms she was not allowed to enter. Only the smell of food, garlic lemon, something roasted and maybe slightly burned. Ava stepped inside. Roman watched her face, not her body. "You okay?" She looked around the foyer. The same staircase, the same polished floor, the same wide hall where she had once carried flowers, linens, trays, and feelings no one asked about. "I'm here," she said. Roman nodded. "That is enough." She handed him her coat because he reached for it only after she offered it. The kitchen looked different, not physically. The marble counters still shone. The copper pans still hung in perfect order. But the room had lost its museum feeling. There was flour on the counter, a towel over one shoulder. 2 plates set at the island instead of the formal dining room. Ava stared at the pan on the stove. What happened there? Roman followed her gaze. The sauce became aggressive. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. "You cooked." "I attempted dinner. Mrs. Bell left instructions." "Did the instructions include smoke?" "No." "Then you improvised." "Poorly." Ava crossed to the stove and picked up the spoon. Roman stepped back at once, giving her the space without being asked. She noticed. The sauce was not ruined, just too thick. She lowered the heat and added a splash of water from the kettle. Roman watched. "You do that like you own the room." Ava stirred slowly. "I used to act like I didn't." He said nothing. She looked over her shoulder. His face held regret, but he did not use it as a shield. They ate at the kitchen island, knees brushing once beneath the counter. Roman did not move away. Ava did not either. The food was better than she expected. "Do not look that surprised," Roman said. "I am reassessing many things. Should I be concerned? Always." He smiled, and it changed him. Not the controlled half-smile he used when men underestimated him. A real one. Brief, almost startled, but real. After dinner, Ava wandered into the living room while Roman cleared the plates. She expected staff to appear from hidden corners out of habit, but no one came. The house felt enormous without people moving through it. On the mantel were photographs that had not been there before. A woman with kind eyes and dark hair, a stern man in a black suit, a little girl missing one front tooth grinning beside a younger Roman who looked serious even at 16. Ava touched the edge of one frame. "You put these out." Roman came to stand a few feet away. "Yes. You never had them here before. I thought hiding what mattered made it safer." Ava looked at him. "Did it?" "Number." The answer was quiet. He sat at one end of the couch, leaving space. Ava chose the other end first. Then, after a moment, she tucked one leg beneath her and shifted closer by inches, not enough to touch, enough to be honest. Roman noticed. He did not comment. "My mother was taken once," he said. Ava went still. Roman looked at the photograph. "I was 14. My father had enemies, and one of them decided the fastest way to make him kneel was to take what he loved." Ava's voice softened. "What happened?" She came back. The way he said it told her the wound lived past the facts. "She was alive," he continued, "but different. My father became harder after that. My sister left Chicago when she was 19 because I made sure she had a life far from this one." He looked down at his hands. "I learned early that attachment gives people a map to your weakest place." Ava listened, heart-aching despite herself. "So you chose not to attach." "I chose things that could not ask me to be brave." Ava's eyes burned. "Women who did not stay." "Yes. And me." His gaze lifted to hers. "You stayed. That was what made you dangerous." The room quieted around them. Ava's voice came low. "I was not dangerous, Roman. I was in love with you." Pain crossed his face so quickly she almost missed it. "I know that now. That does not make it hurt less. No. You let me love you alone." Roman did not look away. "Yes." She expected another apology. Instead, he let the truth stand without trying to decorate it. Ava leaned back against the couch, suddenly tired. "I am scared." Roman's answer came without hesitation. "So am I." She gave a faint, broken smile. "That is not very comforting." "No," he said, "but it is honest." Ava looked at him for a long moment. Then she reached across the space between them and placed her hand over his. Roman went still. He did not turn his palm. He did not close his fingers. He waited. Ava chose the rest. She threaded her fingers through his and felt him breathe out, slow and careful, like a man learning not to hold too tightly. Outside, wind moved through the trees surrounding the estate. Inside, the house that had once swallowed Ava's silence held something different now. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a beginning with both of them awake for it. Ava kept her hand in Roman's for longer than she meant to. At first, she told herself it was only because pulling away would make the moment louder. Then his thumb moved once, barely brushing her skin, and the lie fell apart. The living room was quiet around them. The fire had burned low. Shadows climbed the walls in slow gold waves. Outside the tall windows, the trees bent beneath the wind, but inside the house nothing moved except the space between them. Roman did not speak. That was what changed everything. The old Roman would have filled the silence with control. A question shaped like permission, but weighted like command. A gesture that decided the room before anyone else could. But this Roman sat still beside her, his hand open beneath hers, waiting as if waiting was the only language he wanted to learn fluently. Ava looked down at their joined fingers. "I used to imagine this," she said softly. Roman's gaze stayed on her face. "What part?" "Being here. Sitting close to you. Your hand in mine." Her voice thinned slightly. "Back then, I thought if it ever happened, it would fix everything." Roman's expression tightened. "And now?" Ava looked at him. "Now I know it does not fix anything." He nodded once, accepting the pain in it. "But it matters," she added. Something in his eyes shifted. Not victory, not relief. Something quieter, almost humbled. "It matters to me, too." Ava studied him, searching for the man who once made rooms bend by entering them. He was still there. Roman Callahan could not become harmless, and she was not foolish enough to pretend otherwise. The danger was part of him built into the way he watched doors and listened between words. But tonight, that danger was not pointed at her. That mattered too. She lifted her free hand and touched his jaw. Roman went completely still. The faint scar near his chin caught beneath her fingertips. His breath changed slower and deeper, as if even breathing too quickly might frighten her away. Ava's heart pounded hard enough to hurt. "You can kiss me," she whispered. Roman's eyes searched hers. "Are you sure?" The question landed softer than any kiss could have. Ava nodded. "I am." He moved slowly, giving her time even after she had given him permission. His hand rose, not to hold her in place, but to cradle the side of her face with a gentleness that made her eyes burn. When his mouth touched hers, there was no rush in it, no claim, no victory. The kiss was careful at first, almost reverent, like Roman knew he had been trusted with something breakable and sacred. Ava closed her eyes and felt years of longing ache through her body, not as punishment this time, but as release. She had imagined fire. This felt more dangerous than fire. It felt like being seen. When they parted, Roman rested his forehead against hers. "If you tell me to stop," he said quietly. "I stop." Ava breathed against him. "I know." The answer surprised her because it was true. For the first time she knew. He did not ask for more. He did not turn tenderness into pressure. He only stayed close, his thumb moving once along her cheek before his hand lowered. Ava leaned against him, and Roman wrapped an arm around her shoulders. She felt the exact moment he chose not to tighten his hold. The restraint was almost painful in its care. They remained like that until the fire sank to embers. Later, Roman walked her to her car himself. The night air was cold. The estate lights glowed behind them, softer now than Ava remembered. Her car waited near the front steps, not hidden at the side entrance where staff used to park. That small difference sat in her chest like a quiet correction. At the driver's door, Ava turned to him. "I do not regret leaving," she said. Roman's face remained still, but his eyes darkened. "I would not want you to. You needed to lose me." "Yes, and I needed to learn I could leave." Roman looked toward the long drive, then back at her. I hate that I taught you that. Ava touched the car door handle. So do I. The honesty did not push them apart. It made the space between them real. Roman stepped back. Text me when you get home. Ava lifted an eyebrow. He corrected himself. If you want to. A slow smile touched her mouth. I will. He watched her drive away from the front of the house, and this time, leaving did not feel like tearing herself in half. The next week tested them in quieter ways. Roman did not become easy overnight. Ava did not become fearless because of one kiss. There were old habits between them, old shadows, old reflexes with sharp teeth. On Tuesday, Roman called while Ava was at work. She let it go to voicemail because Helena was standing in front of a wall of paint samples arguing that White had too many personalities and most of them were dishonest. When Ava checked her phone 20 minutes later, there was one message. Call me when you are free. No urgency. No second call. No follow-up demand. No driver outside her building. She called him from the alley behind the studio coat wrapped tight against the wind. You rang. I did. You survived waiting. Barely. She smiled, then caught herself. What did you need? Roman paused. I was invited to a private dinner Friday night. Associates, business people, some family connections. Ava heard what he was not saying. And you want me there? Yes. The old unease rose immediately. A room full of Roman's world. People who knew enough to be cruel politely. Women with sharp perfume and sharper eyes. Men who would look at Ava and calculate where she belonged. She leaned against the brick wall. I'm not walking into another room where people treat me like staff. Then we do not go. She blinked. Just like that. Just like that. The wind moved through the alley. Somewhere inside the studio, Helena laughed at something. Ava looked down at her boots. You are not going to explain why it matters. It matters because I want you beside me. It does not matter more than your peace. The words hit too deep. Ava closed her eyes. I hate when you say things correctly. His voice warmed slightly. I am enjoying it more than expected. She laughed once. Then she grew quiet. No, we will go. Roman did not answer quickly. Ava, I said we will go. But if someone tries to make me feel small, I handle it first. Understood. And you do not growl at anyone unless I request it. A pause. I do not growl. You do in Italian restaurants and expensive hallways. I am Irish. You growl universally. He exhaled, almost a laugh. I will behave. That is not the promise I want. His voice changed at once. I will stand beside you, not in front of you unless you ask. Ava opened her eyes. Good. Friday night came dressed in black silk and old money. The dinner took place in a private room above a downtown restaurant where the elevator required a key and the hostess knew Roman by name without saying it too loudly. Ava wore a deep blue dress, simple earrings, and the kind of calm she had to build piece by piece in the car. Roman stood beside her in the elevator. He did not touch her, but his presence warmed her left side. You okay? Ava looked at their reflections in the polished doors. No. His jaw tightened. Do you want to leave? She turned to him. I want to walk in scared and not let that decide for me. Roman's eyes softened. Then I am with you. The doors opened. Conversation rolled toward them, polished and low. The private room was all dark wood candlelight, expensive wine, and people who smiled without showing teeth. Men in suits stood in small circles. Women in elegant dresses turned just enough to look Ava over without seeming to. At the far end, a man with silver hair raised his glass to Roman. Callahan. Malone. Roman's voice gave nothing away. Ava felt a tension move toward her like cold fingers. Roman did not introduce her immediately. He looked at her first. Ava gave the smallest nod. Only then did he place his hand near the small of her back, not touching, until she shifted closer. This is Ava Monroe. A woman near the table smiled. Ava knew the type at once. Beautiful, bored, and hungry for weakness. Of course, the woman said. You used to manage Roman's home, didn't you? The room thinned around the sentence. Ava felt the old burn of humiliation rise in her throat. Roman's hand remained still at her back. Not pushing, not rescuing, waiting. Ava smiled. I did. The woman's smile sharpened. That must have been fascinating work. It was demanding, Ava said. I was excellent at it. A brief silence followed. Roman's mouth did not move, but Ava felt his pride beside her like heat. The silver-haired man chuckled. I like her. The woman lifted her glass. And now, Ava met her eyes. Now I choose my rooms more carefully. Roman looked at Ava, then not to check if she needed saving, but because he could not seem to help it. The open admiration in his face made several people glance away first. Dinner began. Ava sat beside Roman, not behind him, not at the edge. When questions came, she answered them. When someone tried to talk over her, she finished her sentence anyway. When one of Roman's men began explaining a building restoration badly, Ava corrected him with such calm precision that the table went quiet for a full second before Roman covered his mouth with his hand. Under the table, his knee brushed hers. Ava let it stay. Later on the balcony outside the private room, city lights glittered below them. The river cut black and silver between buildings. Roman stood beside her, hands in his pockets. You were extraordinary in there. Ava looked out over the city. I was angry. Yes. And scared. Yes. And I still did it. Roman turned to her. Yes. She looked at him then. You did not rescue me. His brow drew together. Was I supposed to? Ava smiled. No. That is why it worked. He absorbed that with the seriousness of a man receiving instructions for survival. Inside, laughter rose from the table. Ava leaned against the balcony rail. What happened with Grant? Roman's face changed slightly. Not guilt. Caution. He left Chicago. Voluntarily. Roman looked at the river. Eventually. Ava sighed. Roman. He is alive. That is not the reassuring sentence you think it is. He is also far away, unemployed by Moretti, and no longer interested in asking questions about you. She studied him. Do I want details? No. Did you do this because of me? Roman's answer came carefully. I did it because he put you at risk. That sounds like a polished answer. It is the cleanest one. Ava turned back toward the skyline. I need something from you. Anything. She looked at him sharply. No, not anything. That is how men like you turn love into a blank check. Roman went still. Ava softened her voice, but not the truth. I need honesty. Even when it makes you look bad. Especially then. Roman nodded once. You will have it. If people are watching me, I know. Yes. If danger is near me, I know. Yes. If you want to protect me, you tell me the truth before you act. His jaw tightened, but he did not look away. Yes. And if you ever decide what I can handle without asking me, I leave. The city hummed below them. Roman's voice was quiet. I know. Ava stepped closer. I do not want to be your weakness. You are not. I do not want to be your excuse either. Roman's gaze lowered to her mouth, then returned to her eyes. You are my choice. The sentence settled between them, clear and steady. Ava reached for his hand. This time he did not freeze. He opened his palm and she took it. The months that followed did not arrive like a fairy tale. They came in ordinary scenes that would have looked small to anyone who did not know what they cost. Ava kept her apartment. Roman never asked when she planned to give it up. Some nights she slept at the estate. Some nights she went home. Roman kissed her at her car and let her leave without shadowing her through the city. If security concerns existed, he told her plainly. Sometimes she agreed to a driver, sometimes she did not. The first time she said no, Roman's face tightened, but he only nodded. Progress looked like that. Not grand gestures, not flowers filling a room. Roman did send flowers once, and Ava called him immediately. Did you choose these yourself? Yes. They are white roses. A pause. You dislike them. They look like a funeral arrangement. Another pause. I deserved that. The next day, cream gardenias arrived instead. Ava smiled at them for 10 minutes before pretending she had not. A drawer at the estate became hers because she left a sweater there, and Roman folded it badly but sincerely. Then a shelf in the bathroom. Then a stack of design books appeared beside the living room couch. Then, one Saturday morning, Ava found her favorite coffee brand in the kitchen cabinet, and Roman pretending he had not been waiting for her to notice. She held up the bag. Subtle. I was told subtlety is not my strength. By whom? Nolan. Smart man. Roman kissed her shoulder as he passed behind her, light enough that she could ignore it if she wanted. She did not want. The house changed too, not because Ava returned to manage it. She refused that immediately. I am not your staff. Roman looked almost offended. I know. Do you? Yes. Good. Because I will not fix your curtains unless I am emotionally moved to do so. Understood. 3 days later, she fixed the curtains because they were awful. Roman said nothing. Nolan saw and wisely also said nothing. The party stopped being hollow. Roman no longer filled the West Room with people just to avoid silence. He said no more often. He ended meetings earlier. He took calls outside when Ava was working on sketches in the kitchen, not because she asked, but because he remembered that his world had once swallowed hers. One evening, Ava overheard Nolan talking to Mrs. Bell near the back hall. He is quieter now, Mrs. Bell said. Nolan replied no. He was always quiet. Now he is peaceful. Ava stood around the corner with her hand on the wall. Peaceful. The word followed her into the kitchen where Roman sat at the island reading a file, her coffee waiting beside his. He looked up. What? Ava shook her head. Nothing. Roman narrowed his eyes. That usually means something. She crossed to him, took the coffee, and sipped. Perfect temperature. Her chest warmed. It means you are learning. He set the file aside. I had a good teacher. Ava leaned down and kissed him. Not carefully this time. Not fearfully. Just because she wanted to. A year after the night Roman pulled up the chair, Ava found herself standing outside the same Gold Coast restaurant, looking through the window at golden light and white tablecloths. Roman stood beside her. You are sure he asked? Ava glanced at him. You have asked that 3 times. I am practicing restraint. You are hovering. I hover with discipline. She laughed and his face softened in that way she still had not gotten used to. Inside, the restaurant smelled exactly as she remembered. Butter wine flowers, polished wood. But the room did not tighten around Roman this time, or maybe Ava no longer felt trapped inside the tightening. The hostess led them to a table near the window. The same section. Ava noticed the chair before Roman did. Of course she did. The chair sat tucked beside the table, as if it had never been part of a night that changed both their lives. Roman followed her gaze. His mouth pressed into a line. I was dramatic. Ava sat across from him. You were terrifying. Yes, and rude. Yes, and possessive. His gaze lowered. Yes. She watched him accept each word without defense. Then she smiled softly, and very badly timed. That brought his eyes back to hers. I panicked. You. Completely. Ava leaned back, studying him beneath the warm restaurant light. You said she's mine. Roman's expression grew serious. I was wrong. Ava tilted her head. Were you? He reached across the table, palm open. An invitation. Not an assumption. Ava placed her hand in his. Roman's thumb brushed her knuckles. You were never mine to claim, he said. You were mine to choose. Every day. And only if you chose me back. Ava's throat tightened. Around them, forks touched plates. Glasses chimed. A waiter laughed softly near the bar. The world did not stop for them this time. That was better. Ava looked at the chair again. Then she stood. Roman watched her, uncertain. She pulled the chair from beside the table and moved it next to him. The legs whispered against the floor. No one looked over. No room went silent. No man walked out humiliated. Ava sat beside Roman and slipped her hand back into his. This time she said I moved the chair. Roman looked at her like he still did not know what mercy felt like until she gave it a shape. I noticed. She smiled. I know you do now. His voice dropped. Every day. Ava leaned in and kissed him there in the restaurant where he had once used the wrong words for the right fear. This kiss had no apology inside it. No old ache asking to be paid back. It was soft, certain, and public in the simplest way. When she pulled away, Roman rested his forehead briefly against hers. "Ready to leave?" he asked. Ava looked around the room once, at the lights, at the table, at the chair, at the place where she had once felt claimed and now felt chosen. Yes. Outside, Chicago shone beneath a fine winter rain. Nolan waited near the curb with the car, but he did not open the door until Ava looked his way and nodded. Roman saw it. Ava saw him see it. That small respect moved through the night like a quiet promise kept. Roman offered his hand. Ava took it, not because he had won her, not because the danger was gone, not because love had erased the past. She took it because leaving had taught her she could survive without him, and staying had finally become something she could choose without disappearing. Together they stepped toward the waiting car, their reflections stretching across the wet pavement side by side under the gold wash of the city lights.